I've been with Betty for 10 years. Tattooed her favorite gardenias on my collarbone. She finally agreed to marry me but kept an 18-year-old boy on the side. Before the wedding, she indulged him in a breakup countdown. Bungee jumping, skiing, going to Iceland to see the northern lights. But she didn't know I wasn't going to live much longer. I booked tickets to leave the country, donated all her assets, and got the tattoo removed. While she counted down to the wedding, I was planning to leave her. The day I was diagnosed with stomach cancer, Betty's boy found me. I knew I was just a side piece. The boy started speaking, scarily sincere. He bit his lip and said, "Brother, I know you're getting married soon, but Betty doesn't love you anymore. I've been with her for a year. We slept together 78 times, 53 times in a hotel, 21 at my place, and 4 times at your place on your bed. If Betty still loved you, I wouldn't exist." I found it funny. Lit a cigarette, looked at him through the smoke. What else? Keep going. So he pulled out his phone, played a video for me. The angle was sneaky, like it was secretly Tatum. The guy was crying in Betty's arms. "Even if you're marrying him out of responsibility, can you not leave me?" Betty pushed him away, threw a bank card at him, "Find a stable girl. Being with me's no good. It's too dangerous." "No." He wrapped his arms around her, whining, "I'm not afraid of danger. Please, don't leave me." "Betty, I won't be a burden, I promise." Betty paused. Her gaze swept over his face for a moment. Then she kissed him. I stubbed out the cigarette. This kid is pure with all that youthful collagen. And the moment I saw him, I knew. He looks a lot like me, like the 18-year-old Tom. You're right. If Betty still loved me, you wouldn't be here. I stood up. My stomach hurt a bit, but I hid it by leaning on the table. But don't fall too hard. Betty doesn't love you or me. She only loves the Tom from her memories. The pure, beautiful Tom, who died helping her climb up in this world. In a few years, she'll find a new replacement, and you'll end up worse than I ever did. I lied to him. I'm on my way out. How can he end up worse? At most, he'll just be dumped after Betty gets bored. She hooked me when I was 18. I had no parents, and my grandma, who raised me, passed when I was 15. That's when Betty came along. She pursued me fiercely, spent money like crazy, giving me everything the world had to offer. Betty was beautiful, made me feel secure. I fell quickly. On my 19th birthday, she led me to try new things. That night, from pain to indulgence, we became one. The next day, Betty took me to meet her crew. I'd never seen such scenes, holding her shirt, quietly calling people. Their eyes were all mocking. "Betty, why'd you pick a young boy? Too obedient, he'll hold you back." I didn't understand then what holding back meant. Whispered, "I won't be a burden. Never will be." But later, as I got to know Betty's world, I realized what life she led. Living on the edge. To not hold her back, to stand by her, I had to force myself into that world. 10 years. I cut and dyed my hair, started smoking, got tattoos, even earned numerous scars. Being ruthless enough, I stayed by Betty's side, helping her rise. But Betty never seemed happy. Countless nights, she'd hold me, fingers brushing my scars, then kiss them. "Tom." She would bury her head in my chest and sigh, "I still love the old you." I'd push her away after a pause, light a cigarette. "Laugh, Betty, you have no conscience saying that." Betty came home late, nearly dawn. I lay in bed, eyes open in the dark, until she hugged me from behind. Not asleep yet. She kissed but missed. Paused, then hugged me tighter. "Who upset you? I'll beat them up. Okay?" "Betty." "Yeah." I couldn't see her face in the dark, but I smelled gardenias on her. "We should break up." Betty froze, then let go. Lay on her side. "What's wrong now?" She sounded fed up. "Stop being dramatic." "What breakup?" She chuckled. "Tom, you're not getting any younger. Who's going to marry a smoking, drinking, tattooed, and ruthless man?" My chest hurt. Pressed hard but couldn't stop the pain. Last year, when they stitched my arm, I was allergic to anesthesia. 12 stitches, I bit through the pain silently. But Betty's druntom truths brought tears. I couldn't help but want to ask, "Betty, if I was terminally ill, would you?" "Tom." She cut me off, annoyed. Stop asking silly questions. If you're really sick, we'll die together. Okay? She rubbed her forehead. I'm tied up with wedding and business stuff. Don't need any more drama. Then her phone rang. She hung up, annoyed. But the calls kept coming. After a few loops, she got out of bed with her phone, said out loud. The boy's cries faintly came through the call. Betty cursed, so annoying. Yet she hurried out. Business issues, I'll handle it. Get some rest, don't wait for me. Our wedding's set for the 3rd of next month. Keeping it simple. It was late stage, basically incurable. I never told Betty I wouldn't marry her. I could accept everything about her. Except betrayal. Just thinking about her holding another man, kissing his face, looking for me in that younger me makes my stomach churn. It makes me sick. I got together with Betty when I was 18. It's been 10 years now. The doctor says I only have about 6 months left. So, looking back, I've wasted a sizable chunk of my life on her. For what's left, I just want to be Tom. I booked a flight abroad. I want to see this world I love but never visited while I still can. The flight's set for the 3rd of next month. This morning, I crossed another day off the calendar. 10 days left until I leave. I heard the door open behind me. Betty walked in, wrapped up against the cold, took off her coat, and hugged me. She's still not into my short hair. Her eyes followed mine to the calendar. She saw the big circle around the 3rd of next month and chuckled as she pinched my cheek. Can't wait to marry me. Huh? She counted. 10 days left. Burying her face in my neck, she suggested, these next few days we can dye your hair back to black? You'll look handsome at the wedding. No need. I stared stoically at the calendar. Not much time left. It's good enough as it is. Betty paused for a bit, then agreed. She let go, picked up her coat from the chair. Lots to do for the wedding. Got some trouble at work. I won't be back for a while. As she talked, she watched me, probably waiting for me to give in. But I just looked back at her coldly. Go ahead, I said. Anyway, just 10 days left. Betty didn't say anything else. She walked out into the night, didn't look back. With 7 days till the wedding, I went to a tattoo parlor on the outskirts. The owner was in her 30s, looked well kept but worn out. She glanced at me. What are you getting done? I rolled up my sleeve, pointed to Betty's initials on my wrist, then showed the gardenia flower below my collarbone. Erased them both. She glanced at them. It'll hurt to get them removed, and they'll scar. I chuckled. I'm not scared. Pain's the least of my worries nowadays. As for scars, my body's already covered with them. What's 2 more? Plus, in half a year, this body might just be dust anyway. The owner asked, breaking up? I smiled. Yeah, almost. 7 days more. She clicked her tongue. Real ceremonial, counting down to a breakup? Maybe it was the quiet shop or some connection I felt with her. I don't know why, but talking to her felt easy, like we were kindred spirits. I talked about the past, back when I gave Betty a deadline when she chased after me 300 days. If she lasted that long, I'd be with her. Betty used to count down every day. Tom, 179 days left till you're mine. Only a day left, almost my boyfriend. A girl who spent 300 consistent days to win me over. In the following decade, I gradually lost interest in everything. During tattoo removal, I recounted to the owner the meaning behind those tattoos. The one on my wrist, inked after being with Betty for a year. I'd been kidnapped by her enemies, used against her. Betty almost sacrificed herself to save me. Once I left the hospital, I had her initials tattooed to my wrist, naively believing she'd be my forever. But when I eagerly showed Betty my fresh tattoo, she didn't react as I'd hoped. She was surprised but only asked why and whether it hurt. Then she hugged me, saying, "Don't do it again. I don't like you getting hurt. You're great as you are, a clean, flawless Tom." Back then, I thought she cared. But in truth, she was just being honest. And the gardenia on my chest? I got it when Betty promised to marry me at 28. She adores gardenias, always loved their purity. So, I tattooed it there, waiting for her to marry me. Now, even as Betty's finally set a wedding date for this year when I turn 28, I'm planning my departure. Even if this body won't last, I still don't want her marks on it. Pointing to the other collarbone, I told the owner to place a trumpet vine there. Betty loves gardenias. I prefer trumpet vines. She wished me unblemished. Yet in my final days, I choose to be a proud vine climbing high. Walking out of the shop, it was evening. On the way home, I passed a cotton candy stand. I couldn't help stopping. It's been ages since I had one, probably when I was a kid. Back then, Grandma would give me coins for it, calling me a greedy kid after I devoured it, her face always smiling and nurturing. Passing a street corner, a little girl loudly exclaimed, "Mom, look, that guy is so cool. But why's he eating cotton candy? Isn't that for kids?" The mom laughed, "Who says only kids can have cotton candy? Everyone can. Sweet things make people happy." I continued walking, hearing the little girl's voice trail off. "But why doesn't he look happy after eating that sweet candy, Mom? He seems lonely." Her voice faded as I reached home. The cotton candy was gone, only sticky hands left. I washed my hands once inside. Betty called not long after. She seemed tipsy. "Tom." She smiled on the other end of the phone. "Just 7 more days and you're marrying me. Tomorrow, want to pick out a wedding dress? You decide." Betty was silent for a bit. I could vaguely hear a guy playfully whining on the other end. "Betty, let me come with you to try on dresses. Don't you want to see me in wedding clothes?" After a long pause, Betty's hoarse voice replied, "Okay." I wasn't sure if she was responding to me or to the guy beside her. Woke up and crossed off yesterday's date on the calendar. Just 6 days left. Today I'm going to a concert. Changed clothes, washed up, did my makeup. Felt a bit unwell, though a bit of pain, but manageable. The reflection in the mirror wore Betty's least favorite short skirt, showing off skinny limbs, a peaceful smile. Finally made peace with all those ugly scars. Under the right collarbone, a Chinese trumpet vine bloomed. The concert was packed. I joined the crowd singing loudly. My proud destruction, my hated ordinariness. It reminds me of what I love most. Maybe I was too into it, only realized the pain inside me after the song ended. Holding on to my seat, silently enduring, suddenly, a carton of milk was offered to me. The stomachache made me glance up. It was a young face. The girl wore a creamy white down jacket, smiling. Stomach ache? The milk's warm. It might help. I took the milk, the warmth in my hand driving away some of the coldness. "Thank you." During the song break, she shook her head. "It's all right. My boyfriend loved helping people. He'd be really happy knowing I shared this with you." I looked at the empty seat next to her. "Did your boyfriend have something come up and couldn't make it?" She smiled, but her eyes quickly filled with a thin layer of frost. "He passed away. I'm here for him to watch the concert." The milk I just drank felt stuck in my throat. "Sorry." "No problem." Music started again. Everyone eagerly watched the stage for the lucky audience draw. The big screen flashed quickly through faces. When the screen paused, I saw myself. The photographer seemed to think I and the girl were a couple. People around were calling for us to kiss. Quickly, she pulled out a photo and held it to the camera. It was of her boyfriend. A microphone was handed to me, and I was at a loss for words. In the end, I softly wished, "Hope more people see you, love you, wish you all the best." I didn't know what else to say, so just wished everyone here a long life. Some people laughed, probably not understanding why my wishes were so simple and vague. The camera moved on swiftly. As the next song started, I saw the girl beside me gently cradling the picture, her eyes red, and wish Felix a long life too. In that moment, for some reason, I wanted to cry too. After the concert, I forced myself home. Forgot to close the window in the morning. It was freezing inside. Closed the window, took a shower, then collapsed onto the bed, scrolling through a short video platform. Suddenly, a possible acquaintance's new video popped up. The ID said Mike. In the video, the guy wore a white suit, and the woman beside him had her face blurred out. His eyes were innocent, hiding ambitious desire. Countdown 6 days. And my girlfriend is marrying someone else. A few more days to have you. Wish this moment could last forever. On screen, Betty gently hugged the guy's waist, her action tender. Countdown 5 days. Today I felt okay. Woke up early, did something big. I donated all of Betty's savings that she'd left with me. Every cent. She betrayed me emotionally, but never held back in life. Almost all her earnings over the years were transferred to me, leaving herself just enough for everyday expenses. I put her name on the donation since it was her money, letting her earn some karmic merit. As for my savings, I donated half, keeping the rest to spend. Life nearing its end is incredibly painful, so I must keep a backup plan, can't let myself endure more, and run out of money before death. Unexpectedly, right after leaving the charity institution, everything went black, and I passed out. Woke up in a hospital bed. The nurse said they'd called my emergency contact many times using my phone, but no one answered. My emergency contact is only Betty. Sorry, I'll go downstairs to pay later. The doctor urged a hospital stay, said without treatment, I might not last half a year. I smiled and asked, and if I do treat? He replied sternly, I can't guarantee how the disease will progress, but as long as there's a sliver of hope, we'll try our best. So, even if treated, hope was slim. Thank you, doctor, but please help me discharge. Just out the office, Betty's call came in. Was busy, didn't hear. What's up? I watched the familiar figure down the hall. Nothing. Phone got lost. Some kind stranger helped me dial the emergency contact. Glad it's fine. Need anything for the wedding? No. Another bout of silence. There was Mike's displeased whining, hurry up. The ice cream's melting. Betty spoke. Call me anytime. The call ended. I frowned at the familiar person not far away. The tattoo shop's owner. She picked up her wig knocked off by a passing kid. Looked up and we locked eyes. It's you? She recognized me too, adjusted her wig, and continued, didn't mention last time, but we're quite alike, short-timers both. That day I planned to close the shop. She smiled, you were my last customer in my career. What's your illness? Leukemia. She was carefree about it. Really two unfortunate souls. We smiled, watching the smoke drift with the wind, just like our oncoming ends. I changed my flight, not going overseas anymore. Booked a flight with Henry. My health just can't handle the journey to the Atlantic. Maybe it's destiny, or maybe I just wasn't meant to see those foreign sights in this life. We were both unlucky in life and instantly clicked on one thing: we wanted to see the ocean. Last night, Mike posted a new video. Just 5 days left. Thank you for braving your fear and going bungee jumping with me. I love you too. In the video, Betty and he were strapped with safety ropes, standing on a 100-meter high platform. They embraced and jumped. She was a bit stiff because of her fear of heights, but as they leaped, she shouted loudly, I love you. 4 days until the wedding. Henry asked me if there was anything I wanted to do. I thought for a bit and asked him to go see someone with me. On the way, Henry asked, is he a friend of yours? I shook my head. Quite the opposite, he's kind of my nemesis. Henry raised an eyebrow but didn't ask more. He also went with me to a flower shop to order a bouquet. Victoria's the toughest guy in a few blocks of the East End. Manages 7 or 8 bars, tough on others, tougher on himself. We've been fighting openly and secretly for years. Neither of us really winning. As soon as I entered the bar with Henry, we were stopped. Tom? He got called out, frowned at me. What are you here for again? To curse you out, old man. He instantly changed his expression, then started cursing. I listened to him for half an hour. Felt pretty good after that. Grabbed a drink from the side, took a sip, wanted another, but Henry stopped me. A taste is enough. I relented unwillingly. Waved at Victoria, all right, I'm leaving. You better settle down sooner or later. Otherwise, how will you have the energy to find a girlfriend? As I walked out of the bar, I could still hear Victoria bewilderedly asking around, damn, did he just come to curse at me for half an hour? Is he crazy or what? I looked back just in time to see him kicking a sidekick. Did I lose just now? I didn't do my best. I chuckled and left. Maybe because I'm dying, my lifelong nemesis seemed kind of cute now. On the way home, my phone suddenly buzzed. Victoria sent me a picture of a bouquet of roses. Is this from you? Yeah. There was a pause for nearly 2 minutes. Then more messages started coming in. Victoria, what's with the flowers? Little girls like flowers. Why would I care about this? You didn't hide a bomb in them, did you? Tom, don't think you can make peace just by sending flowers. It's not the first time I'm receiving flowers. The flowers are quite nice, thanks. Let's have a meal sometime. I looked at my phone, smiled, and slowly typed back, sure, if there's a chance. In the evening, Mike updated his video again. Just 4 days left. Hate to part. Let's go skiing. Love how you protect me. Reminds me of my mom. In the video, Mike fell on the snow. From the height, someone skid down. Betty rushed over and shielded him with her body. Over the past few days, the video had gained some traction, with many followers waiting for more updates. Why? Why must lovers part? The girl's body language shows she loves him. Why marry someone else? Is she being forced by her family? Oh my God. The guy looks like he's holding back tears. What? You're shipping them without thinking, aren't you? About to get married, yet playing breakup countdown with an ex? Just lock it down and leave the groom alone. The comments section was full of debates. But more than that, people were gearing up to find out how it would all end in 4 days. I wasn't keen on their melodrama and skipped the video. Ended up liking a clip of some beautiful woman dancing. 3 days to go. I treated my friends to a meal. Everyone was clueless, just thinking it was my bachelor party. Bottle after bottle went empty, and the atmosphere only got livelier. We talked about all these years. Someone brought up Betty and me. Actually, Betty truly loves you, really? The person who spoke was nearly all skin and bones, but they called him Jason. Once Betty got drunk and cried for ages, saying she blames herself for not protecting you. She said, sometimes she doesn't even dare to go home, afraid of seeing you, scared of remembering it was her fault you ended up this way. He sighed. But, after thinking long and hard, I decided to tell you. Tom, Betty has a guy outside. Someone next to him kicked him. How much did you drink? Man? Bro, heard he's drunk. I'll take him home, you guys drink. Jason was taken away by someone. No one believed what he said, thinking it's just druntom nonsense. Everyone at the table gossiped about how much Betty loved me. Even someone dared to call Betty with liquid courage. What's up? Speak. Betty's voice was on speaker, teasing with a tint of breathiness, but slightly rising at the end. I felt my heart sink. I knew only too well that was Betty's tone after releasing her desires. Tom's treating us to a feast. Been ages since we saw you. Everyone followed up. Betty, busy now? Come over for a drink. Betty paused for a couple of seconds. I'm tied up here, you guys drink. Take care of Tom. Drink less, make sure 2 guys get him home safely when it ends. Got it? The call ended. Everyone sighed. Bro, see. Betty cares a lot about you. We single guys endure all this love. I kept silent and sipped some juice. The juice was room temperature, but as I swallowed, I felt this dull aching in my stomach. Forgot to bring pain meds. Having a hard time, I stepped out to get some fresh air. It was then that I noticed it had started snowing. Leaning against the streetlight, I impulsively opened Mike's short video. Maybe hearing too much of Betty just now made me desperately curious about what they were doing. 5 minutes ago, Mike had just posted a new video. He and she were side by side, with a dazzling aurora above. 3-day breakup countdown. To fulfill my wish, she flew me to Iceland overnight to see the aurora. The aurora is beautiful, but not as beautiful as her. But what can I do? She's about to not be mine anymore. Whatever. God, don't worry about me. Just let her be happy. I'll be fine. In just 5 minutes, the video likes shot up to nearly 1,000 and kept climbing. Crying to death. God, don't worry about me. Just let them be happy. First time hating the main girl. Seriously, did that guy save the bride's whole family or something? Speechless, there's a bunch of love fools in the comments. I stared at the aurora in the video, mesmerized by its beauty. Curled up in Betty's arms, I watched the TV with envy. Betty, promise me once you've made money you'll take me to see the aurora. Okay? Sure. Betty answered softly. I'll definitely take you there. Snowflakes fell on my eyelashes, making my vision blurry. I blinked, and the snow melted. But the person holding hands with her while watching the aurora wasn't 19-year-old Tom. The day before the wedding, I got a call from Betty early in the morning. Tomorrow's the wedding. She sounded a bit tired. Nervous? Not really. Busy lately. Miss me? Not really. Another silence. She murmured, I know you've been upset lately. Tomorrow I'll give you a surprise at the wedding. Okay? Okay. After hanging up, I headed out, flagged a cab, and went straight to the cemetery. My dad, mom, and grandma are all there. Soon enough, it'll be my resting place too. Thinking about it, if I could reunite with family in the afterlife, death doesn't seem all that scary. In fact, I almost look forward to it. If grandma saw me, she'd probably raise a hand to scold me, catching up to me for not listening, for coming to her so soon. But she wouldn't really hit me, just a playful pat on the shoulder, then hug me tight, asking if her Tom was bullied over there? Sick and hurting? Where does it hurt? Grandma will make it better. Tom, don't be scared. Grandma's bringing you home. Is Grandma lonely down there? Is her son taking good care of her? I stood up, massaging my stiff legs, getting ready to leave. Thought for a bit, then turned back. Right, no need to protect Betty anymore. She's a jerk, didn't take good care of me. I swept the dust off the tombstone. See you later, Grandma. I bought tons of cat food. Visited a stray cat I've been feeding for a long time. Meow. I was surprised when the cat rubbed up against my pant leg. It's usually distant, never affectionate. But maybe sensing a farewell, it showed warmth for the first time. It nuzzled my hand gently, as if saying, could you stay? Eat up, eat plenty. I stroked its head. We probably won't meet again. This food should last you ages. This cat used to be taken in by people who treated it well, but after a few days, it chose to escape and wander again. It refuses to be caged. Before I left, I lit up a cigarette, looking down at the cat. Goodbye, little cat. Hope you stay free. On my way home, someone called out to me, Tom. I immediately recognized them. Victoria, an old classmate I hadn't seen in years. Back in school, everyone knew she had a crush on me, but she never confessed, and I pretended not to notice. You remember me? She looked really happy. You haven't changed much. You did, but I still recognize you. Of course, she said, looking at me with bright eyes. You're just like back then, haven't changed a bit. How could that be? The smile broke. It was bitter. Sometimes even I don't recognize myself. Being with Betty was tough. Over the years, I forced myself to fit into their world, until I'm unrecognizable. Victoria seems unchanged. Whenever she smiles, it's sincere and warm, a rarity for someone in their 30s, still retaining that youthful vibe. She looked at me earnestly, recognizing someone isn't about clothes. It's in the eyes. Tom, you haven't changed. You just got a new look, and it suits you. In those few words, I was rooted to the spot. I haven't changed. I just got a new look. Thanks. When parting ways, he said, let's meet up again. I said, sure. But I lied to her. Probably shouldn't meet. Next time, I might be a ghost, which is a bit ominous. Everything was packed up already. The gifts Betty gave me, tossed the cheap ones, and sold the expensive ones for cheap online. Without the sentiment, those gifts mean nothing to me. I didn't have much stuff. Barely filled a suitcase. Burned the rest. Eventually, your stuff gets burned when you pass. Doing it early or later doesn't matter. As it got darker, I walked away from what I once considered home, dragging my suitcase without looking back. That night, at the hotel where Betty was staying, she messaged me in the middle of the night. See you tomorrow. After all these years, finally marrying you. I didn't reply. By then, I was already sitting in the airport lounge. With Henry, caught Mike's final video. Betty, the leading lady, showed up, helped him plant a tree, and created a wish jar together. The papers in the jar held their dreams. The camera zoomed in. Her wish, a life free of worries. Mike's wish, hope Betty and I never part. After following them all this time, really ended badly. I broke down crying. Can't they really be together? Whoever you are, new groom, if you have any conscience, let them be. How'd I see this if I blocked them? Whatever, stupid couple. Reflect. Jerk. closed the video. I threw the SIM card into the trash. Meanwhile, the boarding announcement echoed. Henry and I walked to the gate together. Without looking back, we were headed to a beautiful place. Henry and I helped each other up a snowy mountain. Honestly, didn't make it halfway. Two sickly folk, making it even that far was all we had. But we still saw the beautiful scenery. We went for some mushroom hot pot. It was pretty tasty. But after 2 bites, I threw it all up. Such a waste. Henry ate a lot. He said he'd eat more for me. We also rode elephants. Saw the ocean too. It was so beautiful that Henry and I almost felt like jumping in together. Just as we were about to, an auntie nearby stopped us. "What are you doing?" she said with a thick northeast accent, blocking our way. "You two are so handsome. What's so bad you can't get through it?" She gave us some good advice, telling us to keep living. "Living is the most important thing," she said. "Everything else is just nonsense." She even had candy. "Real sweet stuff," she said. "Cheer up, eat some candy, and don't have any more crazy thoughts. Your parents would be heartbroken if they knew." The auntie was really kind. Henry and I obediently ate the candy and promised not to do anything stupid. She finally left, turning back several times to check on us. The candy was so sweet that we suddenly lost the courage for anything rash. We decided to listen to her. "Live well. Gain a day every day you live. Can't be a loss, right? I heard Betty lost it at the wedding." Tons of messages blew up, but I didn't check any. Except for Victoria's. She sent me a video of the wedding. Betty was on stage in a wedding dress, looking all gentle. But the doors opened and no groom was there. Her smile stiffened awkwardly. Victoria's camera zoomed in on her face, catching every bit of shock, panic, and fear. "Where's Tom?" she yelled on stage. "Where is he? Bring him back to me." She had almost all her friends hunting for me, but they found nothing. Someone nervously asked her, "Sis, did the video of you and that guy get out?" She froze. "What video? Aren't they all censored?" Someone handed her Mike's last video, saying they just stumbled upon it yesterday. The previous ones were censored, but not the latest one. Betty grabbed the phone, her face turned ghostly pale, and then smashed it to pieces. When the video ended, Victoria texted, "Wow, you really pulled a big one." She asked, "Where are you? Be honest, do you have a terminal illness?" I didn't reply to her. She was spot on. Victoria is pretty smart. She probably figured something was up, but kept sending me more videos anyway. Guests scattered. Betty stormed the reception hall with red eyes, smashed screens, flipped tables. The woman seemed crazed, until she was exhausted and finally crouched by the stage, hanging her head, like she was crying. In the video, Victoria's voice was unfiltered. "I used to think you had good taste in women. Now looking at Tom, she's really the kind of ex you'd never want to claim." Henry and I rented a place by the ocean. Got a local housekeeper too. She was a bit chubby but really kind and super efficient. She always nagged about how skinny we were, said it was heartbreaking. So, she put all her effort into cooking up a storm for us. I couldn't really eat anymore, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I forced a couple of bites each time, and then spent ages throwing up in the bathroom. My reflection was getting skinnier, cheeks starting to hollow, making my eyes seem bigger. "Henry," I called him over. "Do I have that bony beauty thing going on now?" He stood next to me, also looking really thin. He laughed. "I'm about the same. We look like a pair of skeletal souls." I saw Betty's short video. She always hated showing her face. This time she anxiously looked at the camera. "Tom, if you see this video, please don't swipe away." She looked worn out with bloodshot eyes. Not an ounce of her past glamour. "Where are you? Can I come find you?" she asked. I only regret 2 things in my life. One was getting with a guy who looked like you, indulging in desire. I never loved him. Every minute with him I thought of you back when you were 18. The other was dragging you down all those years ago. Her eyes were red, trying to hold back, but her voice still trembled. "I've always hated myself for not protecting you." I couldn't listen anymore. Swiped the video away. Henry was next to me, listening with disgust, constantly asking me if I'd ever forgive her. Of course not. I swiped through videos unless she follows me to death. Kidding him. Even if Betty followed me to death, I wouldn't forgive her. She's too dirty. Betty's video blew up. She and Mike quickly became infamous on social media, became the symbols of untrustworthy folks. Everyone thought a powerful groom was forcing Betty into marriage, and it was all to break up with a bang. But they weren't expecting this pairing. What about the groom's 10 years of love? What about my tears those days? Being a homewrecker like that, what a storyline. The guy was my middle school classmate, always playing innocent with that face, secretly stealing girlfriends, bullying other boys, just downright nasty. Finally, the disgusting couple got their comeuppance. Such a relief. No one's firing at me now, right? Soon, Mike's history got exposed fully. His past misdeeds spread like wildfire in the comment sections, with former classmates tearing him apart. Mike and Betty's photos turned into all sorts of memes. Every meme was full of foul language. Even spawned a new catchphrase. Don't be too Mike. Compared to Betty, he was just a kid with no backing. His address was easily found, and local do-gooders began camping outside his house. Their home was on the ground floor. Every night people would bang on the windows. Whenever he went outside, people would call him a homewrecker. People threw rotten eggs into his room and splashed paint on the door. The whole family became a laughingstock. Heard Mike got depression from it all, locking himself up, obsessively reading the hate online, and breaking down crying, then screaming and smashing things. Betty dumped him. Because of that viral video, there was some talk he even got beaten up pretty badly. The poor kid ended up being carried home by someone. It was all over the internet. Later on, Mike completely lost it. He'd spend his days in his room, crying and laughing, holding onto a giant stuffed bear named Betty. 2 months passed. His parents ended up taking him to a mental hospital. Someone snapped a photo of him at the hospital entrance. In the video, he looked nothing like his innocent past self. His hair was a mess, and he was acting all crazy. He got so thin you could barely recognize him, and when he looked at people, it was like he was always scared. People online seemed pretty happy with this outcome. They were like, serves him right. Finally, some justice. They were waiting for the girl's karma, wondering why she got to hide away. Rumor had it she was a troublemaker, and some folks were wishing the worst for her. As for me, I might have just been unlucky. The doctor told me I had about 6 months to live. Yet here I was only 2 months in, and my body just started giving up on me. The day after Henry and I rode elephants, I couldn't even get out of bed. We'd agreed there would be no more treatments. But Henry, eyes all red, ended up taking me to the hospital anyway. He was panicking. They took me to the ER. When I came out, I saw Henry, his eyes all bloodshot. He said, "You scared the hell out of me." He tried to take out a cigarette, but then he remembered we were in the hospital, so he stopped himself. In the hospital room, we looked at each other for a long moment, and then we both started laughing. Isn't it funny how complicated people are? 2 guys who thought they were ready to laugh in the face of death ended up chic-toming out when it came knocking. Nobody's ever ready to really let go. You can't fight fate. Henry touched the flower tattoo on my collarbone, and though he was smiling, he couldn't stop the tears from falling. "This is my last piece," he said. "You're taking it with you so soon, you jerk." Well, he laughed, at least the one who leaves first has no worries. He added, "Don't worry, I'll take your ashes back and bury them behind your grandma's grave. That way you can all be together again. Okay? Hey, wait for me down there, and we'll be reborn together." Henry's perspective. Tom died. He passed away in a place where it's always spring. He always said I was a free spirit. I didn't cry when he died. But when they pushed him into the crematorium, when I saw the flames consume him, I just couldn't hold it together anymore. That was Tom. One day he was laughing and coaxing me into taking my meds, and the next he was gone, taken by those flames. When he came out, he was just some ashes, put into this tiny box. Auntie was heartbroken, crying her eyes out. She kept mumbling, "If only I knew he was sick. I could have cooked him some lighter meals. Should have made him more soup, right?" She choked up, "Just a couple mornings ago. I raised my voice telling him to wear a coat. Do you think he thought I was being too harsh?" Auntie, I said, holding back tears. He was only 28, even younger than my own son by a year. Holding Tom's urn, I couldn't help but tear up. He always felt he wasn't living as purely as Grandma wanted. He never realized what a great person he was. He only knew that even the housekeeper, who'd only known him for 2 months, cried till she could hardly breathe. On the plane ride home, I whispered, looking out at the clouds, "Tom, we're going home." I buried him behind his grandma's grave. Now Grandma can watch over him. We had Tatum his photo ahead of time for his memorial. Short hair, clear eyes, and that bright smile for the camera. I left some flowers at his grave. Whispered to him, "You're definitely the most handsome ghost in this cemetery." I cleaned up around Grandma's grave too and poured some wine. "Grandma, I brought Tom to you. Don't be mad that he's here so soon. He couldn't take the pain anymore. In the end, he was hurting so much. He doesn't have to bear that pain or swallow down all those pain meds now." As I left, the sky began to drizzle. Holding an umbrella, I walked out of the cemetery and ran into someone. A woman I'd never met in person, but whose name I knew all too well. Betty. I hesitated a moment, pretending not to recognize her, but she stopped me. She fixed her eyes on me and said in a raspy voice, "I've seen your photo. Your name's Henry. I checked the flight info and you and Tom left together." I looked everywhere for Tom, but I couldn't find him. Realizing something, she began to shake and looked over my shoulder toward the cemetery. "What are you doing here?" I met her gaze. One word at a time, I said, "I'm here to say goodbye to Tom." She stumbled back, her eyes instantly red. "Tom's dead. He died in my arms." Betty froze, this woman who was said to be so cold now shedding tears. "Where is he?" "Tom didn't want to see you. If you're here to cry, do it from a distance. Let him and Grandma have their peace." I didn't hide Tom's death. She'd find out anyway. Tom's grave is right behind Grandma's. Anytime she goes to visit, she'll see it. But I had to tell her. I asked Tom if he'd ever forgive you. Betty's lashes fluttered, and she looked crushed, awaiting my reply. Deep down, she knew what Tom would have said. Tom said, "I told her, only if you die." Before he died, he got rid of your name tattooed on his wrist, erased the gardenias on his chest. He hated gardenias. On the other side, he inked the flowers he loved, trumpet vines. He threw away the gifts you'd given him, donated the money, burned everything that connected him to you. You know why? Slowly, I said, as I watched her eyes go empty, feeling oddly satisfied. Because he wanted nothing to do with you anymore. You were filthy and made him sick. Tom saw Mike's videos ages ago. He knew about each day you spent with your lover counting down to your breakup. You really thought the countdown on the calendar was him eagerly awaiting your wedding? Suddenly, I burst into laughter. Betty looked down, her eyelids twitching violently. I went on. He never really thought about marrying you. The countdown on the calendar? It's just him marking the days until he leaves you. You're a woman beyond repair. Why do you think he'd still want to marry you? The woman lowered her eyes. Her shoulders slumped completely. She choked up and said, "I always blamed myself for turning Tom into what he is now. I know he did it for me. It's just that such an environment doesn't allow for someone too naive. The brothers wouldn't accept a brother-in-law who's that innocent. She was never a burden. It was me holding him back. With Mike, I always saw him as Tom. I indulged him just trying to make up for losing Tom back then. I couldn't listen anymore. I laughed coldly, enough already. Who are you trying to fool? Tom wasn't even dead when you cheated. Feeling guilty, you don't make it up to Tom but find a stand-in instead? It's hilarious. Tom bore the pain, but the stand-in gets the apology? Betty stayed silent, choking back her tears. In my life, from start to finish, I've only ever loved Tom. She trembled as she spoke. Those days indulging Mike were just my way of saying goodbye to the past. To the Tom of the past. After marrying him, I'll dedicate myself entirely to making it up to him. Tom took a knife for me a couple of years back and got hurt. He injured some muscles, and the doctor said it's unlikely he'd ever be as strong as he was. She laughed at herself. I had surgery. I planned to tell him after the wedding that I might never have kids. that he'd be enough for me. I cursed under my breath, disgusted. I laughed again, saying, I guess you did one humane thing. You lost Tom and ended up childless. Fitting. I stood in the rain, watching her get what she deserved. Hey, I heard you lost nearly all your places? I asked. You've lost everything, money, friends, everything. That's tough. By the way, Tom wanted me to tell you all those places Victoria took over were ones he secretly helped with while he was still alive. He knew all your weaknesses, but Tom was soft-hearted. He couldn't bear to see his brothers who followed him for years fall on hard times. So he made an arrangement with Victoria to ensure each brother had a way out. They'd be better off with Victoria. I laughed, you see. Tom made sure everyone had a path forward, even that stray cat he always fed. Before he left, he gave some money to a local store owner to take care of it. Except for you. You know how much he hated you, right? The rain came down harder, drenching her completely. I walked away under my umbrella. I didn't take a cab, just walked along the road outside the cemetery. My mind was cluttered with memories, old ones and the more recent ones with Tom. Tom always said I had a carefree spirit. But once I depended on someone too, and was let down. After that, little by little, I learned to let go. Tom was luckier than I was. He still had a grandmother who loved him. But I had no family. An orphan, I grew up relying on the kindness of many. Suddenly, my thoughts were interrupted by a speeding car. A black Range Rover broke through the rain and slammed into a roadside barrier. A loud crash echoed. That license plate ending in 999, I remember it. Tom mentioned it. It was Betty's car. I stood there under my umbrella, coldly watching the flames rise. Too bad some passing cars called an ambulance. A well-meaning driver pulled Betty from the car. I didn't stay to watch. I hailed a cab and left, because I already knew, no matter the injury, Betty wouldn't truly live again. Betty survived, but she found life worse than death. The one she loved the most refused to see her on his deathbed. The brothers despised her for her cruelty, blaming her for Tom's death. They left for Victoria, and her business was gone, her money given away. The crash didn't take her life, but it took her legs. Betty became truly useless. She didn't even have the courage to end it all. I guess it's because she couldn't face Tom down below. Once, when I was visiting Tom's grave, I saw her there. She wore a long coat hiding her legs, sitting stiffly in her wheelchair, staring at Tom's grave, expressionless. In the wind and snow, she looked like a frozen statue. She stared for a long, long time. Until I left, she never dared to move a step closer. But this might be my last visit to Tom's grave too. Ever since he was buried, my health has been declining. Without Tom, there's no one urging me to take my meds. Sometimes pain wakes me in the middle of the night. I take a lot of painkillers over and over. Finally, on a day when snow fell, my life came to its close. The bare branches had a light dusting of snow, everything was white, and the trees seemed reborn. My vision blurred gradually. I seemed to see Tom. He stood in the snow, reaching out his hand to me. Walk on, Henry. Don't be afraid. I closed my eyes, surprisingly at peace with accepting death. I'd already prepared my affairs and bought my plot. Very close to Tom. The tombstone next to mine was put up last year. The guy's photo sharp and handsome, with a dimple on the left cheek when he smiled, gentle and sweet. The name on the stone is Hisway. Sounds nice. I think I'll like this new neighbor. Before my consciousness fades, I think after I'm gone, I'll open a tattoo shop in the afterlife. First, I'll tattoo Tom, who's become a ghost, with a trumpet vine flower, because trumpet flowers remind me of him.